Hello, everybody. Welcome to this very special edition of the Captain King Wadcast. Today, we are conducting our first ever interview. We have Jeremy Mhire with us on the show. He is the owner of CrossFit Springfield and Proximal Strength. He is the director of the Heart of America team competition in Springfield, Missouri, and gold album selling artist with the boy band Plus One back in 2000. So today, we're going to be talking about how his business has ran during the year 2020 with COVID and everything going on, holding HOA during all of that, and what CrossFit Springfield and CrossFit in general means to him. So really hope you guys enjoy this.
Turn my music
All right, everybody. We've got Jeremy Mhire, director of the Heart of America competition and owner at CrossFit Springfield and Proximal Strength. Jeremy, how you doing today, man?
Doing great, Christian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being with us for our first interview and first interview I've ever done in my life. So hope this goes well. I'm super excited about doing this. Thank you.
I don't feel worthy of that honor.
Oh, you were like first top pick. Whenever we started the Wadcast, so the first idea what came from leaving HOA, we went to a restaurant, just pitched the idea to Dallas King, and he was like, I'm into this. Let's roll with this. And we were thinking about what we could do. And I was like, we can get people to interview. I'm like, oh, we gotta get Jeremy on here. Like, that'd be amazing. And so thank you for being on this. Like, this is
dude,
great.
I'm super stoked.
Cool. Let's get right into it. First thing, tell us a little bit about Proximal Strength and CrossFit Springfield. Like, when you guys start up, what it all means to you and everything.
Yeah. Well, the short of it is we started in 2008. I had gone to school for sports medicine and athletic training, and that was kind of the carrot that I was chasing, was to do clinical work or maybe get with a sports team and be an athletic trainer. And it was crazy because I came from, after high school, the music industry, and did my little stint in a boy band and music. Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and play that card just to get that one out there. But even while I was touring, I was always interested in sports still, and I grew up playing football and basketball, and so I was always wanting to work out. And so when my music career came to an end, just getting into some kind of athletic endeavor, and then even an athletic endeavor that involved medicine somehow, that really interested me. So I went back to school for athletic training, and as I was finishing, a buddy of mine that played football at the Naval Academy, he went infantry in the Marines, and he was stationed out in California, and he told me about CrossFit, and flew out to San Diego, did my level 1. Dave Castro was my flow master.
Cool. That's cool.
It was like back when he was still running level 1. CJ Martin was the gymnastics kind of instructor. I got my first muscle up there, and like, it was super cool, man. But yeah, we affiliated in June, I believe June or July of 2008. And in 2009, I got into competing, and we affiliated as CrossFit Springfield, which we still have as an active affiliate now. So 13 years we've been a CrossFit affiliate. But Proximal Strength, just having that medical kind of background, is just an anatomical term, referring to the midline. And I just always liked the sound of that, proximal and strength together. And just as we know in fitness, we're always trying to teach people that we can only be as strong in our extremities as we are at our core. So that's what I started as a training blog when I was competing. And from about 2009 to 2014, competed at the, in the open and the sectionals, at the regionals level, and went to the games once with a team. But yeah, man, just super, super cool. Being able to bridge that gap between the sports medicine background that I had and all the knowledge that I gained there my dad was talking to me the other day. He goes, dude, I remember whenever you started the gym, that there was a guy that came up to my dad, and he was like, Jeremy, he was involved in the athletic training program. And he's like, why is he going to waste all this education and this time that he spent learning all this on CrossFit? And my dad just shook his head, because he knew what I knew and what that guy didn't, that CrossFit wasn't going anywhere. Right. It wasn't just going to be a flash in the pan. And that this is the key thing: when it is administered properly, that it is highly effective. And it's a positive thing. So anyway, sorry, I've got a stopwatch over here that's going off. I don't know if I'm gonna.
You're good.
Yeah. Anyway, that might just, can you hear that super loud in the background?
Oh no, barely hear it. Like I can hear it, but barely. It's
okay.
Fine.
Okay. So we still have all the HOA stopwatches in here.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah.
So to kind of take a little side road detour here real quick, because you mentioned it. I was going to bring this up no matter what. Little known fact to some people, gold album recipient with a +1. I was doing a little bit of digging into there. I didn't realize you guys had a song on a soundtrack to, whenever I was a kid, one of my favorite movies, but like one of the Pokemon movies that came out. And I saw that, and I got in my car this morning. I listened to it. I was jamming to it, and I was like, man, I'm getting pumped for this interview.
That's a deep cut, bro.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows about the Pokemon soundtrack.
No, I didn't for this morning, and now I do. And also, you just shared this a few weeks ago on your Instagram. You guys were on live with Regis and Kelly. I gotta know, is Regis a nice guy? I think what was.
You know what's funny? So if you noticed in that video, it's Kelly Ripa, and Joan Rivers. Rivers she was a guest host because he was sick. So Regis Philbin he was sick that day. So we were all kind of bummed too that we didn't get to meet Regis, but dude, Kelly was an absolute sweetheart. Joan Rivers was like, you could tell she was just kind of the old Hollywood.
I'm Joan Rivers,
but super sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but I mean, a lot of fun experiences with that, man. And I mean, honestly, there's no true way to tell the story of CrossFit Springfield and what we've become as Proximal Strength as well, and HOA, without that foundation. Right. I mean, I think all the experience that I got in my travels, in just realizing that we all have different perspectives, we all have different outlooks, and even within this country, obviously now everybody understands that everyone's looking at life through their lens. And I learned that in my travels, like, all the different regions, all the different states, there's just so much diversity and so much to see and experience. And I'm thankful for that season of my life where I got to see and do a lot of those things. And I feel like it was a huge part of just my foundation for what I do now.
Right. That's cool. That's great. Also, just one of those very fun facts to have in the back pocket. So going back, getting a little more on track, how has COVID hit Proximal Strength and CrossFit Springfield?
I mean, in a lot of ways. Are you there?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I can see it now. You're good.
Yeah. I got a phone call. Is there a way for me to silence phone calls whenever I'm a Zoom novice? I don't do a lot of Zooms.
This is my second Zoom call. My first one was a test with one
of
the other people on the show. So we'll just make sure I knew what I was doing.
Dude, I'm like, I don't know. I'm so tech savvy in some ways. Mm-hmm. In other ways, I'm just like a total dork and I can't figure any of this stuff out. So yeah, well, we'll just keep flying by the seat of our pants. But to answer your question about COVID, yeah, man, I mean, it's affected us. We were kind of talking about this before we went live. In a lot of ways, we've experienced what the rest of the country has in terms of restrictions and masking ordinances. And we were March 18th, I believe it was, we shut down for a couple months. So it was challenging, but it, it- I kind of just had this peace in the midst of that, just knowing that the mission that we have, to serve our community and strengthen lives through, through fitness, obviously mentally, physically, and spiritually. I knew that that mission does not go away,
right?
Whether or not we have to shut down, or whether or not, we have all these restrictions. So, it, in a lot of ways, we were just like everybody else in the community, in the fitness industry, that was trying to quickly pivot and try to be as helpful and as hopeful as we could be. Um, uh, you know, I'm just going to speak really frankly. Like, I saw a lot of people in the industry that just immediately started bitching and complaining and griping and like trying to fight it. And I wanted to have a healthy measure of, okay, you know, I don't like this, and I'm going to acknowledge that feeling.
Right.
But at the same time, what in what ways can we be productive to our members? We've got over 400 members. We lost probably around 25 to 35. That's a miracle.
Yeah.
I think it's a miracle.
Yeah, no, that's
and I don't say that. Well, I don't say that to boast. I say it just because I think through God's strength and wisdom, acting through myself and my wife, our family, our coaches, our members, I just saw how he made a way when there didn't seem to be a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did our part to give out equipment like a lot of gyms did.
Right.
We did it quickly. I thought that communication was key. And, for all the great ways that we're able to communicate because of technology, I think some of that got lost for a lot of gym owners at the initial outset, because they were so focused on how stressed and frustrated they were, which I can empathize with and I can understand. But if you allow that feeling and that emotion to carry you, and down that wormhole, you're not going to be any help to yourself and then to the people that God has entrusted around you. And so, I mean, the most powerful thing that I did when this first started was sit at the dinner table with my wife and my kids. And the last thing I cared about was the gym, honestly.
Gotcha.
The first thing that I cared about was our mental and our spiritual and our physical well-being. And so me and the kids and Jenny, we prayed and we just talked to one another about, hey, how can we as a family be supportive? We're going to be obviously locked down and quarantined or whatever, and in close quarters. So we made a concerted effort as a family first to say, let's support each other. And I mean, I said this in an article that I wrote for a local media outlet, but I basically just said, because they were asking about, families' responses to the shutdown and homeschooling and everything.
Right.
And, I just said, it may feel kind of awkward, but if you force yourself to sit down and just have the tough conversation of, okay, what is this really going to look like for us? Then you've made a pact with one another that you've got each other's backs, even when it gets stressful. And my wife and my kids, man, and myself with them, we had each other's backs. And it made that first and foremost, that being healthy, that being strong, it made us able to then focus on the gym and how we could make the gym healthy and keep the gym strong. So yeah, we handed out equipment, and we did some online stuff. We didn't do any Zoom classes. I just instinctively felt for that first shutdown that we went through. I just felt like, let's write workouts, let's brief them, let's hand out equipment, and then let's let everybody do the workouts on their own. So many people were having to go to Zoom calls for their work,
right.
And I just felt like your workout time is kind of sacred. And I felt like, give people the freedom to just get it in whenever they can.
Gotcha. I think everything that you just talked about, there's a great lesson in that. I think there's so many times where people people want to be helpful. People want to see what they can do for other people, but they don't take that step back and make sure that they have their foundation set first. So what you said, where you like sat with your family at the table and got like laid out everything from like ground level and then worked your way up from there. I think that's a huge lesson a lot of people, could, myself included, could definitely need to take into account. And that through that, I think is how you come through the things. Like you said, you guys only lost about 20-30 members. And I think that goes show because of the foundations that you laid out from the beginning of that.
Right. You know, to your point there, the other thing is that the community, not just the CrossFit community and not just our members in our community, but literally the greater community at large, was watching, I think, our response. You know, they were watching, like, because I know I was doing it, you were doing it, we were all looking at other gyms, like, so how are they handling this?
Right.
You know, you're kind of waiting to see what the big names in CrossFit, like, what's Rich Froning going to do? What's Mayhem? Like, what is everybody going to do at their gyms? How are they going to respond? You know, I think if you can find a really strong, just, and that was the other thing, is what is proper and correct for one person and one community is maybe not the same for another.
Right.
So that was the other thing that I kind of tried to avoid, was commiserating. I saw a lot of people that they wanted to connect with other gym owners, but I did it more on a one-on-one basis. So I've got friends that are gym owners, you know, in Arkansas, in Oklahoma, here in Missouri. I would have phone conversations or Zoom calls with them, but I wasn't, I don't know, I got asked to do a few things where I was like, we're going to do a conference call with like 50 people and like talk about how to handle this. And I've got nothing but love and respect if that works well for you. But for me, it was just like, man, I don't want to turn into a little session where everybody's just going to like complain about what's going on,
right,
and not do things to be proactive, you know. So anyway,
no, that's good stuff. Yes, let's go ahead and move into talking about HOA. This was its 12th year, 13th year, 12th year, right?
Yeah, this was our 12th season of HOA. Yeah.
So let's go back to year one. Like, what started it? Like, where did the name come from? What inspired you guys to do this, and where has it how has it grown since year number one?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a lot to unpack, but at the end of the day, kind of like we talked when you first asked me to do this podcast, when you pull back the curtain, there's just a lot of it's kind of simple. You know, we were, again, being one of the first 1,000 affiliates for CrossFit. There wasn't that many. We were the only one in Springfield in Southwest Missouri. There was another CrossFit affiliate in West Plains. You know, it was just kind of spotty. There was like one or two in Kansas City, and there was actually several in St. Louis. And as I had got into kind of wanting to compete, I had become friends with a couple of guys in the St. Louis area, and the gym owners there. And I just contacted them and said, hey, would you guys be interested in doing an event that is, you know, kind of mirrors what we saw with the CrossFit Games? And I talked to Morning Chalk Up kind of about at HOA. I talked about, you know, our beginnings and how it all came about. But we had watched that documentary, Every Second Counts.
Right.
And it was back in like 2008, I think. And it was just a documentary on the whole Games experience. And I remember our gym at the time, maybe had like 50 members, something like that. And, you know, we did a little barbecue and put up a big projector and watched the documentary. And from that was kind of this desire that was birthed in me, in our community, to maybe see if we could do something like that in the Midwest. And there was this sense in the Midwest back then amongst early affiliate owners that like CrossFit started in California and just like grew and skipped the Midwest, and like all of a sudden was huge on the East Coast as well.
Right.
And it was just, I think it was birthed out of his desire to create a platform for us to have community fitness and a competitive aspect for CrossFit in the Midwest, period. So we just want to create a hub, and it started with like 13 teams, maybe. I mean, there was like, you know, maybe 70 or 80 people there, you know, with spectators, maybe like 100, 125 people, and very successful. It was just like I think it was just a 1-day event, and we decided on the name. I kind of came up with the name Heart of America just because I was like, we're in the heart of America.
Right.
And I thought it was really simple, yet, you know, it gave us this opportunity in hindsight as well to represent, you know, what I think our values are as a nation of unity and strength and courage and you know, resilience and all those things that I think we would like to stand for as a nation. And I know I wanted to represent in an event.
Gotcha. Thank you. Definitely did a very good job at it. Like, it's definitely grown something huge in this area. We talk about it all the time throughout the year here in Arkansas. We're always looking forward to it every year. Did you ever imagine it was going to grow to be like what it has? Like that now you're hosting like games athletes, sanctional athletes, and things like that.
Gosh, you know, I think I can answer that question now, being able to look in the rearview mirror, by saying that there's been times throughout the 12 seasons or 12 years of HOA where I've chased that. But I think when we initially started, you know, I always just try to do things with authenticity. And I think just the authentic desire was just to serve the community and the people that were there. And I've always got to go back to that initial, just that primal basic desire to just put on a really great event. Right. And I don't care if you know, it's covered by big media outlets, and I don't care if, you know, the high level elite, you know, games athletes are competing. I really have to lead from a place of, if they cover it, awesome. If they don't, I'm still going to try to do an awesome job. I'm not going to diminish or set the tone for planning the event based on, you know, whether or not those kinds of names or those kinds of media outlets cover it or show up. But, you know, in doing that, I think it's kept our intentions pure, and it's allowed us to grow the event in such a way that there's kind of like this very like casual, it's really weird. It's like super casual, but it feels like really big,
right?
You know,
absolutely.
And like, you know what, I don't know. I can't really quantify it or express it in words. And I don't know that you or anybody else could either. It's hard. It's close. You can almost capture it in video, but it's just something that you and I both know. And I think the community that listens to this, we know when you experience it, it's just, it's powerful, you know? And you truly have, whether you're, you know, again, I'll just bring up my dad, but I broke my foot. I'm sitting here, you know, right, in a boot, but basically been having to get driven around. And my dad was talking to me on the way in today, and I was telling him that we were going to do this podcast and talk about HOA. And he goes, man, you know, the coolest thing about HOA, because him and my mom work at the apparel booth during the weekend.
Cool.
And so he'll talk to the athletes, and he'll hear from everybody on how the weekend's going. But he's like, you know, the thing that we hear over and over is that whether it's a beginner or somebody that's just super scared because they've never competed before, or whether it's a high level athlete, everybody just feels like, you know, they're in it together. And even though you're competing, it's a healthy competition where, you know, you want to win, you want to do your absolute best, but you don't want to sacrifice your integrity or compromise, you know, sportsmanship in order to do it. So I don't know, man. I have this saying I always say, bad weeds pull themselves. And, you know, like and strength of character kind of attracts. And I really feel like we, we're not perfect, but and no event and no community is, but I think we're all really unified and striving for excellence. And that's the point, whether it's 13 teams or whether it's, at the height, the biggest that our event has ever been on paper was like 2015. It was the first year that Brooke Wells came to the event and competed. We were at the Expo Center. We were still teams of 6. There was like over 1,000. I think we had like, there was over 1,000 athletes, just athletes. It was almost too much to manage.
Right.
So, that's one thing that I thought about in coming into this interview with you is like, it's made me kind of reflect and think on the 12 years of HOA and the lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I think I've learned in business and in event planning, just in life in general, is I like bigger is not always better. Like, quality is huge. And that's one thing that I think I get the most compliments or kind of kudos on from HOA is because we do our due diligence, bro. Behind the scenes, we cross our T's and dot our I's, and our judges, our volunteers, they're super on top of it, and they've been communicated well with and briefed on what to expect and how to do things. And once it's a rhythm, and it snowballs once you have people that buy in. It's just like a gym. Once you kind of buy in and subscribe to the culture of a gym, then you kind of find your groove, you find your rhythm in your training. Right. And that's how we are with the event.
I think your 12 years of experience, and that really definitely shows that all the lessons that you have learned in the process of getting to where it is today. I've definitely been to competitions where it was fun. And then I've been to competitions where it was competitive, but a lot of those times they don't seem to blend. Like it's one or the other. And I think you've done a very good job of making one that anybody can go to and enjoy. They can be competitive about it. Like you've said, try to give their best no matter what. And no matter where they play, it's like you walk away, like you had a really good weekend that weekend there. I think you did very good at replicating the whole games layout. One of my favorite things is being on the drive to Springfield and seeing that first workout on the way. I like how you hold the releases till we're there and things like that. Just that sense of unknown and unknowable that you don't get at a lot of competitions in this area. So I always think that's really cool.
Everybody wants to, everybody wants to play it safe. And I think feel like if we release the workouts and release the standards, then we'll have more participation. Those that have been cut from the old school cloth of CrossFit understand that that's the whole point. You don't get to choose the adversity that you face in life, bro. And I didn't choose to break my foot the other day, but it happened. And you know what? I'm making do. I did my workout this morning, and I focused immediately as a coach and as a gym owner. I'm constantly telling my members, listen, focus on what you can do, not what you can't. And that what you cannot do, work towards improving it so that you can do it.
Right.
And so that's been my mindset. There's years where it's hard, where I know the workouts and I'm like, oh gosh, this is so good. I want to share it because I'm excited to share it. I feel like it's a gift and I'm ready to give it. I know it's kind of maybe sadistic a little bit. But,
you ever think about doing the Dave Castro route and just giving those super obscure hints that don't actually mean anything, but they're out there?
I love the way Dave does what he does.
Yeah.
And I admire the way that he has built the games. And he's got his style. And Coach Bergner, he said something at a clinic, and he says it all the time, but he's like, take the best and leave the rest. Yeah. And so there's things that I see, other event directors or promoters do, and I'll be like, I like that. I'll kind of take a page out of your playbook for that. But I try to like, I'm kind of a rebel as well, in the sense that when people tell me that this is what we should do, then I almost immediately I immediately try to find reasons to not want to do that. I mean,
you want to
I'm
prove
just kind of
work otherwise. I understand.
Dude, I'm like, my mom always told me that she prayed that my stubborn, hard-headed nature would be, used in a good way, because I've always been like that, man. If you tell me I've got to go this way, I'm going to be like, why? Why can't I go that way? And I'm going to prove to you that I can make it work going this way. And I've had to leverage using wisdom and discernment,
Right.
with those kinds of decisions. But yeah, man, the process of writing the workouts, the process of like testing the workouts, I love it. I'm addicted to that. I mean, even as I talk to you about all this, every year that we plan HOA is its own unique event. Like, we kind of maybe have the mold, but I always look at it as start from scratch. It's like, you can have 12 kids, but right now you're dealing with 12 different life circumstances when you have the child, and personalities. You know what I mean? The dynamic of life changes, and there's different iterations of how you raise children and all that. And so that's the same thing with planning an event. If you for 1 second just try to bank off of what you did last year, how you did it, and just think that you're going to be able to like stroll into the next year, I never expect it to sell out. I never expect it to be, super. I don't know. I pray that it's successful. I pray that it's, that it does well, but you've always just got to keep doing your due diligence to build it from the bottom up. And so, yeah, I'm always kind of looking at like whether or not we're even going to do it. I mean, honestly, because nothing's guaranteed. You don't know what's going to happen from year to year. I think that COVID in 2020 has proven that.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
So you do all the programming then for that. You're the man to blame.
I do. I mean, I have so much help. I mean, I bounce. I'm talking through the workouts with my wife, Jenny, Corey Lewis, who he was our head judge for the first 11 years. And he wasn't able to make it this year because he was focused on his gym, surviving the shutdowns in St. Louis. And, but Corey has done a lot over the years to help program. I try to keep my circle really tight when it comes to programming for HOA, because I don't want to leak. I like the things that I do allow to become public knowledge, I kind of do it tongue in cheek. Like, I post a picture of the worms, or I post a picture of the assault runners, or the D balls that we used a couple of years ago, or whatever, like I do that being like, you see one of the ingredients, but you have no clue what this recipe is going to be. And you get to taste it the weekend of HOA. But the workouts change so much, bro. When I go to the games, I smile. I just sit back and I kind of smile, because I'm like, I realize that sometimes things are changing all the way up until the day of the event behind the scenes. Yeah. And I mean, that's just the reality of it. And not big things. Like, I'm a huge advocate of, once you say this is what the workout is, that's it.
Right.
Like, my biggest pet peeve is when I see sometimes huge events like change the workout at the event. Like, I hate that. Once they've announced it, I just feel like you should have troubleshot and thought about every single, hurdle. And we do our best, and it's painful sometimes because we'll change one little thing, and I'll tell, my demo team, or I'll tell, the people that are helping me test the workouts, I'm like, we got to do it again. They're like, what? Like, I'm like, no, you have to, you have to get accurate, assessments of time, stimulus, the manpower required. There's so many considerations that, I've got to, when you're an event director, you've got to have thick skin, because people are super gracious, I would say, with HOA more than what I see even with other events. But I feel like a lot of that grace is due in part that we've been tested by time. I always say time exposes or promotes, and time, we've tried to show and earn the trust of everyone over time, that to know that, like, we're going to make this work and we're going to do our best. But, sometimes I see, we'll get criticism of, why didn't you do it this way or that way? Trust me, when you get to HOA and you're competing, we have thought of every single thing that could be done for the workout, every way that we could have done it, or maybe it could have been longer or shorter. We don't ever always get it right, but we're making a really concerted effort to make it make sense in the context of the workout and in the context of the weekend.
I think you do a very good job of that. I think that always shows, like you said, you're never going to make everybody happy. But from the years that I've been there, I've always very much enjoyed it. And you can always tell a lot of thought goes into all of it. What have you already started programming for next year? Like, how early do you do that? No?
No. There's some years, I can tell you right now, there's sometimes where, because I do all of our programming at the gym for Proximal Strength in CrossFit Springfield. So I'm always kind of tinkering with ideas, and, I'll write a workout and I'll be like, oh, that slaps. I'm going to put that in my back pocket for HOA, like maybe I'll use that combination of modalities, or, I'm always kind of thinking, but there's so many considerations when you're programming for so many people. And it's, a lot of people, and I think even you asked the question of, like, changing the divisions. And, we have at HOA, for those that don't know, we have an RX division, we have a scale division, and then we've done multiple masters divisions. This year, just because of COVID, we just said, let's just do one masters division. But, you've got to consider equipment. And this year, in a pandemic, equipment was tough. Like, we used primarily our own equipment. We've been very blessed to, slowly grow throughout the year and be able to acquire a lot of great pieces of equipment. And just for our daily use at the gym, I give my members a hard time sometimes, because I'm like, I don't think you realize how good you have it, man. But I was very thankful that we were fortunate enough to have the majority of what we needed, and those things that we didn't have, we were able to find, online and get. So, as far as programming for each year, the process is, again, it's kind of unique, like, to each individual HOA. So some years I've already got, I will say, one thing that Dave Castro kind of talks about is, a lot of times you have an idea for a workout. Let's take, like, the 30 for the kids workout that we did a couple of years ago. Like, I'd gone to Haiti and it had a profound impact on me. And I was like, I already knew that I wanted to do a workout and somehow partner with Brace for Impact and 30 for the kids through First Form. So I already knew that that was kind of like the workout that we wanted to start the weekend with. And once you kind of have that anchor workout and the time domain and the stimulus that you get from that, well, then you can build around it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
you know, like you've already touched those waters. So now you've got to swim to something different to get a really well-rounded test. And, you know, it can be kind of tough to do in 3 days, and the time constraints and, you know, the consideration of other businesses and parking, you know, you've been here.
You're right.
It can be kind
It's
of
tight.
crazy. But we make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a good job of it too. Out of your 12 years programming for it, is there any like one workout that comes to like immediately to your mind that you would say is your favorite that you programmed for HOA?
Ooh, man, that's tough.
Yeah.
There's been events, I think, gosh, honestly, man, it's fresh in the mind. But the workout that we did for Will
Right.
Thompson this year, I mean, that's pretty close to home.
Right.
I mean, that was meaningful in a lot of ways. And just to kind of to frame it for people that don't know, we did the first workout of HOA 2020 was in memory of a former coach and member at our gym that got cancer. He's a U.S. Marine and an officer in the Marine Corps, and he got cancer and tragically passed away. And in a really quick, short amount of time, he was diagnosed at the Marine Ball, and within a month, it took him. But yeah, doing that workout to start this year to honor him, and gosh, just like I said, getting the buy-in from the community to where they really understood what it represented. And I loved the way, because we used the assault runners on that workout.
Right.
You know, just thought we did it in a really cool way, like forcing everyone to do that 200-meter sprint, and then mixing in all the other modalities. And there was a lot of strategy. It just had that perfect balance of strategy and teamwork and and suffering, so
it was a great first workout for the weekend, like coming from the athlete's perspective of it. That with the opening ceremonies, I thought was a beautiful memorial to him. Seeing his dad out there, that plaque y'all gave him, it was beautiful to watch, and it hurt to do. Me and my team, we could only describe it as like a 20-minute long Fran. Whenever we walked away from it, lungs were on fire, but it was a great workout. It was a great test and a great way to start the weekend. I really enjoyed it.
That's good. Well, I know that it's good whenever like the top, when I've got like Dan Bailey coming up to me after the event, and he's like, "Bro, we got done with the first sprint, and I got off, and he said he looked at Margot Alvarez and was like, we're screwed." Like, because like if you've done CrossFit for a while, those of you that have done CrossFit for a long time, and myself, you know that the best workouts are the ones that you look at on paper and you're like, that's it. Like, I got that. Like, you think you're going to be able to attack it one way, and it totally just strings you along. Yeah. It baits you into going. It totally did. And that was the goal. That was the goal, is I wanted everyone to feel like they ended up having to go way harder than they intended, and they can't go as hard as they want to. And it was funny about it. We were joking after HOA this year, but we were laughing about how I didn't intend to do this, but I loved the dynamic of setting up the assault runners where they were facing one another, to where you literally had people like, you could tell who was the alphas in the room, because they were either like staring at their opponent, or they were like, I don't want to look you in the eyes.
I'm really uncomfortable with eye contact.
Dude, it's so funny. And I was nervous. Two things with the assault runners. I was worried that someone was gonna like fall. Right. that because like
a lot of people's first time on those.
we failed by the margins of our experience, our exposures, and a lot of people hadn't had a lot of exposures to the assault runner. So I was kind of worried about that, but then there's like that part of me, like the Russian in Rocky, that's like, if he dies, he dies.
If he dies, he
you know,
dies.
if he dies, he dies. But then the other thing that I was worried about is the monitors failing. And I don't know if you were in any of the briefings beforehand, but I was so thankful, dude. There was one of our members that had done this competition that had assault runners in it, and they said that in case of a monitor failure, they put a piece of tape,
right,
and they counted the revolution. So thankfully we only had one time.
Oh, really?
Over the course of like 20 heats or 15, 18 heats, however many we had, that happened, and the judge just was on it. Immediately went to counting the revolutions, and it turns out that 50 revolutions is exactly 200 meters.
Right.
So it solved that problem.
I did go to that briefing about that one actually, and I was saying, how do you count that? I just feel like that'd be moving so fast. And like in between, like I was off the runner. I just started looking at it. I'm like, oh, that's not that bad.
It's not that bad. I mean, if you can count, and some people really suck at counting double unders.
Right.
But especially those that are counting their own when they like cheat in a workout. But judging, like, that's one thing with the clinics, because that's another thing that people don't realize sometimes going into HOA. We have 3 judges clinics.
Right.
Bro, I had people driving. I couldn't believe it. We have people that'll drive from like St. Louis, Rolla, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. People, one year we had a guy fly from Arkansas. He owned a plane. He just flew his private plane to Springfield to judge at, HOA, which is like, that's just, again, it's just a testimony to the buy-in from the community. And dude, when you have people that are willing to be, selfless enough to like not get some huge fat payout, or
right.
We're trying to take care of our judges and our volunteers as best we can and show our appreciation in a very authentic, sincere way. But man, I mean, they work their tails off. And
yeah, absolutely they do.
So much of the success the weekend of HOA and leading up to HOA is due to them. And honestly, while we're on that note, I mean, I say it every year at the event, but man, my wife, she is superwoman. That woman, Jenny, she behind the scenes is just attending to every single detail. Like, when I say she's superwoman, I mean literally the things she deals with and the grace and the strength that she does it would crush most people. Like, it would literally crush most people.
Right.
And she's got such a strong, resilient personality, and she's very headstrong, and she's so kind and graceful, but at the same time she's not a pushover or a bully. Right. Like, it's cool the way she operates.
That's awesome.
So
so you've already mentioned the runners, and you mentioned something about the worms this year. That was wild seeing that at HOA, because I've only ever seen things like worms at like the games and a couple sanctionals and a couple regionals. What was that like, getting to program with those and getting to throw those out there? Was it kind of hard? Like, was it a new thing?
I mean, yeah, it was. That was one of those things where I've been asked or told for years, you guys should use the worms. Mm-hmm. So I was like, no, we're not going to use. Yeah, I'm not going to use the worms because everybody thinks that we should, or that like the games is using it. And I don't know, man, like just doing it in such a way where it made sense. This year, putting the programming together, it made sense. I mean, that would be the one piece of advice that I would have for gym owners or event planners, is like, don't force it. Don't force a modality or don't force a path if it doesn't really make sense. And that was the thing about using the worms this year. I felt like as I was putting the workouts together and kind of like, okay, so the Will Hero or Memorial workout, I knew that was going to be, a workout that these are the modalities that are the exercises that we're using in that one. And you kind of start checking boxes. This is what we've done. This is what we've used. Start looking back at previous years of what we've done and what we've used. And I just saw the worm as a really cool way to incorporate and force that team aspect. The symbolism this year was so funny, but that final event, it started to where everybody's working individually, and then it ended with everyone being forced to work as a unit on the worm. And I really liked that dynamic,
right?
Just in a year where we've had to distance and quarantine and be separate. And like, I remember when we reopened our gym and I hired a videographer to come, and we've made a super cool video that like CrossFit HQ, reposts and everything. And it was cool that we did it and that they promoted it as well, because it captured that feeling of coming back together.
Right.
Man, there's just nothing like actually the physical presence of having to work together and being able to be together again. And so the workout, again, like we talked about earlier, it took a few different iterations. And I think the biggest one was that I flipped. So if you remember, it ended with the clean and like jerk with the worm, like the clean and pushover, and then thrusters, and then the run. And I switched the order, and I think initially I had like 40. I think I had 40 clean and jerks and only 20 thrusters.
Okay.
And we tested it, and I was like, that it's just like, this is going to turn into a complete shit show. Like, I just realized like the clean and pushover is just a little bit more complex dynamic, and it took more time, and it just made more sense to switch it. It made the workout tougher, I thought, because like the burnout from the thrusters was like real. Like,
it was rough.
It started to tickle. So there was a lot of obstacles with that. Like we got the worms, and there's a learning curve to like the way you put them together and with these straps or whatever.
Right.
And we use this company called Rexac. And they make, I mean, I'll give them their kudos where it's due. The sandbags that they make are phenomenal. They are such high quality. I was really pushing with my wife because she's kind of our chief financial officer, and I was like, we have to keep these. Like, because we're always like the financial piece. I mean, that's definitely something to talk about, because it's a huge undertaking, and I mean, it's a huge financial risk sometimes, and to have the financial support of our sponsors like Junk Brands and First Form and all of that. Like, dude, we had so many vendors this year, like great vendors, and without them coming on board, they're the ones, honestly, that make a lot of the extras, like the assault runners and the worms. They make that possible because of the financial strength that they help give the event. But the worms were interesting because they started kind of coming apart in the first heat, and in which I was like, that was like my worst nightmare. Like, I'm like, I was like praying. I'm like, oh God, please don't let this be what like derails HOA 2020. But again, as always, just as a testament to the just the quick thinking and the action of our volunteers, like they figured it out, man. They had duct tape in between heats, and they got them all like kind of like patched up. And it's interesting because we tested the workout a couple of times. And the first time we really had a big issue with the worms coming apart. So we put more of the straps that they gave us on and did it again, and it held up pretty well. But for whatever reason, we just, you have people that kind of like, if they get dropped awkwardly or gripped from the wrong spot, the straps were just, they're Velcro, they just started ripping. So once we duct taped over those, it was fine. And the one thing I'll say about the worms is they weren't that heavy. And I think a lot of people took that part of the workout for granted. And you see it in your gym. And I think it's our natural instinct to slap more weight on the bar because we think that more weight is going to make the workout better.
Right.
And we'll get stronger and we're doing more, which maybe in some cases that, I'm not saying that that's not always true, but a lot of times, man, the stimulus, the intensity is diminished,
right?
Because you try to up the volume of the weight of the load. And using the weight that we used, and I liked it because we didn't have to worry about changing out the bags for the RX division or the scale division or the masters. We just used one weight.
Right.
It was the same for everybody across the board. I thought it was thankfully, like RecSac, they kind of gave us that direction on what weight we should maybe go with.
Okay.
That would be something that would be uniform for, 500-600 competitors and varying strengths and abilities and skill levels. I thought it was really good. The lighter weight sometimes makes the workout harder because you're just going to go that much faster. You're going to do it unbroken,
And you had people you take Grace and put it at 205 pounds instead of 135 pounds. It's a different workout altogether.
Of course. Yeah. So yeah, that worm was really fun to watch. It made for some really, really cool pictures and videos.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad we did it ultimately. And thankfully to Jenny, she let me keep the sandbags afterwards. So
nice.
We're able to use them now for the gym, which is cool.
Yeah.
So
if we are under the unfortunate circumstances that COVID is still hitting the country about as hard as it was this September 2021, do you plan on keeping it still hosted at Proximal Strength, or would you think? Because I remember over the weekend, I heard the reminders all the time, ask people, hey, keep masks on, let's try to keep.
Yeah.
People were having kind of a rough time with that throughout the weekend. Would you consider moving into like a more open space, like going back to the expo center and things like that, or would you try to keep it in your facility and just hope?
Well, regardless of masking ordinances, regardless of COVID, there are definite pros and cons to both. There's there's the convenience factor of doing it in-house. There's the energy. Like when we do it here, how many years have you competed at HOA?
Only the past 2. I haven't been to any of the ones at the expo. We've had some people, I have not myself.
Okay. So yeah, man, I mean, the expo center is really cool because I feel like it definitely brings a little bit more formal feeling. It feels, and that was really why I wanted to go there. Like we've gone to the ice park here, and earlier in the conversation you were talking about, what my aspirations are initially for HOA. Did I envision it being a really big event? And yeah, there's been years where I've really been pursuing that. Like, I want this to be like regionals, like especially when I was competing, more so for the community, because when I was competing at regionals and like, that was kind of like the golden age, and I'm hopeful that we go back to the way that they did the regionals. It was dope. Like, bro, like it was such a badge of honor. And that's what I do love about HOA is I feel like, when you make it through the weekend, you're like, it's such a badge of honor. You feel like it was challenging, and it was, there was really high level athletes there, and it was competitive, and it was, there was There's great media coverage. Like it kind of gives you that feeling of like, I just did a regionals level, nationally recognized event. And I feel like we've definitely crossed that threshold. But there's been years, going to the Expo Center that, it's a huge challenge as far as setup. That's probably the biggest challenge, is like getting a rig there and having it set up and bringing in all the equipment. And, there's just so many things that we have in house that kind of make it just a little bit easier. It's hugely disruptive though to our gym. So just our business operations. And I try to be very sensitive to the fact that we have 425 members, and not all of them care about HOA. Like, just quite frankly, I mean, by proximity and by default, if they're a member here, they're part of the reason why we're able to do it. And, it kind of comes with being a part of this community. But at the same time, I recognize that for the week of HOA, like, it kind of gets in the way, and we try to work around it. And this year we had the warm-up area set up outside, and we had a lot of our classes that were able to go on out there as we started setting up inside. But to directly answer your question, I haven't, just being honest, I haven't yet even landed on like, are we going to do HOA next year?
Oh, okay.
And I'll be honest, just like, just from the standpoint of like my family, and there's so many layers to that question of whether or not we do HOA every year. So, my wife, there's been seasons where she's been working alongside me here at the gym. And there's been seasons where she's had, a position at the hospital, or she's been working at another company. And so she actually just recently, actually today, is taking her national real estate exam to get into that. And we've been very fortunate, just because of networking at our gym, to have some opportunities that have presented themselves for her, and we've prayed about it and made that decision as a family that she's gonna pursue that. But that changes the dynamic. We only have, you, myself, all of us, we only have so much bandwidth to be able to accomplish everything, and do it at a really high level. And that's kind of one of my core values is, I would rather do one or two things at a really, really high level, and be able to pour my whole heart and soul into them, than to half-ass a lot of things, and to not be able to focus on, my marriage and, my role as a father. Our kids are Vincent and Emil. They're 12 and 9, and they're getting more into sports and, their activities and everything. And, I got to make sure that I'm facilitating their success and I'm able to be there for them. And then my gym, Proximal Strength and CrossFit Springfield, like, I've got a lot of high hopes and prayers for where our community goes, and pivoting our branding to Proximal Strength. It's not necessarily tethered to just CrossFit, because I'll be honest, and I've said this, I've been really candid about this. As much as I love CrossFit, it's just a method. It's just a tool to develop fitness. And, and I subscribe to it wholeheartedly. But not everybody, it's not for everyone. And if anything, 13 years of coaching and having a CrossFit gym has taught me, it's that, it's going to work for a lot of people, and it's going to be their cup of tea. And for some people it's not, and that's okay.
Right.
And my heart is to build lives, again, mentally, physically, spiritually. And I don't believe that just CrossFit is the one way to do that. Just like I don't believe that just bodybuilding or physique training or marathoning or cycling is just the one way. I believe that all those ways can be, really a impactful way to edify not only yourself, but those around you. And so that's kind of our mission with Proximal Strength now, is to expand our programming options, hopefully possibly to expand our imprint within the community, in the people that we're able to reach, and the people that we're able to help. The funny thing about business is the people that typically find a purpose greater than just making money and being successful are typically the ones that end up making money and being really successful. So I'm clinging to the mission that I know is far greater than both those things, and that is helping people.
That's great. That's all good. That's it on questions I have. Do you have anything that you'd like to say to wrap this interview up, or any other questions you wish that would have been asked or anything like that? Or
not at all, man. Christian, I'd just say to you, dude, I mean, I've through the years, because of my boy band stuff, and then now through CrossFit both as a competitor, as a gym owner, and as an event director, I've been fortunate to sometimes unfortunate to do interviews and media stuff, and sometimes it's hokey and kind of corny, and I appreciate your authenticity and being able to just have a real conversation. I always feel like the mark of a good conversation is that you forget that the camera's on, or that you're recording or talking for a bunch of other people or whatever. And so I don't know, just to connect with you and to be able to chat with you means a lot. So appreciate it.
Thank you, man. We appreciate you. And again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your today to do this.
Yeah, man. And good luck to you guys.
You too. And I hope you have a good recovery, and everything within the upcoming 2021 goes a lot better than 2020 has for all of us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks, Christian. All righty.